The 501st Charity Group was formed in 1997 by Albin Johnson and Tom Cruise, and they have expanded over the years from just Stormtrooper cosplayers to basically every single Star Wars villain imaginable. They have extensive information on how to make screen-accurate costumes. They have garrisons all around the world, and they do so much volunteer charity work. They're great. Timothy Zahn canonized the 501st in 2 stories in 2004, Fool's Bargain and Survivor's Quest, and Karen Travis's choice to name her 2009 novel after them was a lovely gesture. As with most of the Republic Commando books, I had never read 501st, an Imperial Commando novel before. And in fact, when it came time for me to make this review, even though I had read the book over a year ago, I had to reread it because the only note I took from my first read-through was apparently the words self-indulgent melodrama. Yikes. So first, a brief summary. The Jedi have been decimated in the aftermath of Order 66, and the Republic has fallen. The former Republic commandos now find themselves on opposing sides in very different armor. Some have deserted and fled to Mandalore with Cal Skirata, while others from Omega and Delta Squad now find themselves stuck on Coruscant, serving as Imperial Commandos, tasked with hunting down the remaining Jedi. All of them will have their loyalty tested by the looming threat of Palpatine's new empire. The first very important disclaimer to note is that few, if any, plot lines are resolved in Imperial Commando. Travis was originally contracted to write 2 Imperial Commando books, but when she withdrew from writing Star Wars books, that second book never came. So if you go into Imperial Commando wanting conclusion and resolution from the previous 4 books, unfortunately, you're not going to find it here. So the plot of Imperial Commando is basically separated between Darman and Niner and the Delta Squad guys who we see very rarely on Coruscant hunting down fugitive Jedi, and Cal Skirata's family members and others who are holed up on Mandalore, honestly not doing very much. During Order 66, Niner fell and broke his back, and instead of getting out with the rest of the Omega Squad guys, Darman stayed behind with him. Niner definitely wants to desert and go to Mandalore. Darman's going through some issues, though. Besides the death of his wife in the previous book, he's a little bit emotionally all over the place. Doesn't think he can ever see his son again, really wants to see his son flip-flopping back and forth between those 2 extremes, and then ultimately deciding on a rather radical decision that I think says a lot about his mental health state at this point in time. And Niner and Darman are actually doing things. They go on, well, 3 missions. Meanwhile, on Mandalore, Cal Skirata's dug in on his farm. The Imperials are on Mandalore, but they're not going to get involved with that. And Fen Shaisa wants them to help his possible rebellion, but they're not going to get involved with that. There's a lot of mourning Etain, and then wondering what they're going to do next. And how are we going to get Niner and Darman out? And people romantically pairing off, and anger at the Jedi. And if the previous 4 books had a lot of interpersonal drama, but also had a lot of action, Imperial Commando really hits the brakes on the action front here. Cal Skirata takes in Jedi, but he's not happy about it. And those Jedi could give away the location of where they're hiding out, so they might have to kill them. But maybe Bardan Jusik can wipe their memories, and then they find out about Master Altis, and maybe they can hand them off to him, but they still have to wipe their memories. And anyway, Let's get into the characters. Of the Omega Squad guys on Coruscant, Niner misses his brothers. He wishes he could have made it to Mandalore with them, and he wishes Darman could have made it. He understands why Darman stayed behind with him, but it would have been so much better if he didn't. Niner's also rather skeptical of what they're being tasked to do. He doesn't have this hatred of the Jedi that some of the others have. And when he gets information from their first deployment, they're sent to take out an Antarian ranger, not even a Jedi, but they encounter the former General Kamas, who was always a bit of a jerk. He dies, but in the process, one of the new members of their squad is also killed, and Niner gets his hands on some information that he's like, I can't let the Empire have this. I should try to see if we could get this to Scarada. So he meets up with Jaller Oberyn, who had been Senate security and now is not, and there's obviously important information on this, so he's gotta wait to get it to Scarada. And the important information turns out to be Master Altis's network, how he's trying to get Padawans and younglings to safety on Pletzwell, which is a connection to Children of the Jedi. But he doesn't want Darman to know what's going on because Darman is very unstable. And in fact, they get a new supervisor, the 501st. It had formerly been a dark side user who appeared in some Darth Vader short stories that Karen Travis had written, but he cloned and killed. It's complicated. So instead they get a new supervisor whose name is Rolly Melusar, and he is like a true believer that all Force users need to be gone. He might be in for a surprise if he learned that Palpatine was a Sith, but Darman thinks that this guy is the real deal. Niner is a little more measured there. Scarada dispatches the Nulls, flown by Nyreen, and they go to Coruscant and they're supposed to pick up Niner and Darman, but Darman doesn't want to come because he's mad because he found out there's Jedi there. They're gonna steal his son, and Niner ends up, for plot reasons, not being able to go with them, and so he hands over the information and stays. I say plot reasons because this felt drawn out. Like, this wasn't something Travis wanted to resolve until book number 2, so that's why Niner didn't go with them. But there is no book 2. I don't know. I wouldn't want Niner to abandon his brother, but at the same time, Darman is a mess. And I feel like if you wait for Darman, you're gonna be waiting a long time. Niner's steady and dependable, and I like reading about him, especially juxtaposed with Darman, who's just, I don't know, losing his mind right now. Darman has gone through some trauma, obviously. Uthan had a baby and didn't tell him. He finally found out like a year later, and then he and Uthan get married via text message, only for her to die in a very silly manner. And he's got this image in his head that the Jedi are gonna steal his kid, and so besides feeling the grief about Uthan, but also feeling like he doesn't want to focus on it because it's too strong, it like will take away from what he's trying to do right now. He also sort of falls under the sway of Melusar, and it's like, yeah, he's right, all the Jedi need to die. And as we end the book, he's gotten it set up that they're going to go to Mandalore on a mission, but this isn't for him to defect, this is for him to basically take his son and run away. Poor Darman. He's just going through a lot, but at the same time, I wish someone would, I don't know, smack him upside the head and be like, please think rationally. In the depths of grief, no one thinks rationally, but you're reading it and you're just like, oh, this guy is struggling. Of the new squad members that Omega Squad gets, they're not Omega Squad anymore. There's the 2 Corellian trained troopers, and the first one, Bry, I think, dies in the first mission, and then the second one takes his own life, which is awful. Especially because the second mission, they're dispatched after a Jedi in Coruscant with a lightsaber, and it's not a Jedi, it's just a random dude who stole one, probably in the aftermath of Order 66. And that second trooper, I think his name is Enin. It's sad that the Clone Wars ended, but these guys can't stop. The war hasn't ended for them, they're just redirected at a new threat. And then they have one of the Sparty Cylinder clones who's sent to join their unit after Bry is killed. His name is Reed. They talk trash about him, but then they're like, maybe we shouldn't talk trash about him. We don't know much about him at this point other than he is a very fast study. Then we've got the hordes of Skirata's found family on Mandalore. Oh, good golly. I like that we get the viewpoint of Nyreen. I like that because she's an outsider perspective. She is able at points to look at Cal Skirata and go, do you not realize the hypocrisy of what you're doing? But also, she's his romantic interest, so there's like a certain level of awareness of what's going on, but then she also feels bad for him. It's like, oh no, we're being paired off. I will make him cookies. It's like baby steps. It's like one step forward, acknowledgement of like, Cal Skirata's forming a cult here. Cal Skirata hates the Jedi, but he's sort of being a hypocrite about things, but then at the same time it's also like, Cal Skirata, what a great guy, he really loves those clones. Of the Nulls, the only viewpoint character we get, I think, is Ordo. Ordo's having some conflicts, like now that Skirata's actual daughter, Rue, is there, he's like, oh no, my father. He keeps reiterating that if Jusik can't wipe the Jedi's memory, he's gonna kill them. He'll kill them. He'll kill them. Ordo, calm down. I really wish we could have gotten more of the Nulls' point of views because it felt like outside of the short stories, the only one we consistently got was Ordo. And Ordo's fine. He's just, I don't know. It feels like some of the other ones are more fun. Like Muriel's the one that's a ladies' man. Give me some Muriel POV, or Jane, who's the one who's very hacker tech good. And then there's the ones that like we barely get at all. They're there. And then the separatist scientist Dr. Uthan is there and falling for Gillimar. He's a medical doctor, she's a scientist. I guess they have things in common. She's there to figure out the clone aging issue, but then Palpatine uses that virus she used to kill everyone on her planet. And then it felt like a switch was flicked in her, and all of a sudden now she's absolutely Team Skirata. She does come up with a vaccine, basically, so that if Palpatine was going to administer that virus to Mandalore, they'll be okay. Although I do feel like the ethics of spreading it, because I guess it's viral, like they got the shot, but then it's viral, and they were spreading it to other people in Keldabe. Maybe not medically sound, but whatever. And towards the beginning, Nyreen shows up with some Jedi. She has found Scout, who we previously saw in Yoda Dark Rendezvous, and a Jedi from Kamino named Kina Ha. Kina Ha was mentioned in the role-playing game, so it's cool to see her there. But Scout is, I would say, not quite like herself. She seems to be a substitute for Etain, and she's scared of the clones and everything. And on the one hand, I could see having lived through Order 66, like that could freak you out. But what I love so much about Scout in Yoda Dark Rendezvous was that Scout is weak in the Force, but she tries so hard. The fact that Scout figured out that you can grab a training lightsaber, it will hurt like heck, but you can do it, and she practiced doing it, and she did it in that Padawan duel contest thing, is really cool, and we see none of that here. When they first see Scout, everyone's reminded of Etain. She reminds them of Etain. And other than Etain also being a weaker Jedi, I just don't see the connection there. Scout sort of immediately gloms on to Uthan and Gillimar. Good for her. But again, I think that Travis's tendency to not read the books that characters appear in and just take them from reference material shows in her portrayal of certain characters. And like, as much as I like seeing Scout and love seeing that Scout survived Order 66, she just didn't feel like Scout here. And it's cool incorporating Kina, a character from the role-playing game supplement, but she feels like a Jedi that Travis is using because she reiterates Travis's agenda. And that's also the feeling I get with the use of Master Altis here. I think Master Altis is really cool. He was introduced in Children of the Jedi as the Master of Callista, and to try to make sense of his unorthodox ways post-prequels, it was that, oh, he's operating outside of the Coruscanti Jedi, he's doing his own thing. So then Travis can use him as he's a good Jedi. Yoda and all of them were bad Jedis, but Master Altis is a good Jedi. Cal Skirata meets with Master Altis in a scene that I would describe as, this could have been an email, like, what a rather pointless meeting. But Cal Skirata's all like, we've got Jedi and you need to take our Jedi. And he's like, we can take your Jedi. And he's like, we'll have to wipe their memories so they don't know about Mandalore. And Master Altis is like, okay. Here's the thing. That skill, wiping someone's memory, has always struck me as dark side adjacent. And I feel uneasy about it. Luke was doing that a fair bit in the Black Fleet Crisis books. And when he did it, I was like, I don't think this is a good thing. I think that using the Force to mislead people is iffy already, and straight up wiping someone's memory, I think I'm concerned about that. And I'm concerned about how easily Master Altis was like, okay. In fact, all of the Jedi are like, okay. And again, this is not something that Bardan Jusik has ever done before. Yes, he used the Force to heal Phi's brain trauma, but like this seems like another skill entirely. In addition to Scout and Kina, we also get Zay, Master Zay. Maze contacts them. It's like, hey, can I come to Mandalore? And they're all pissed that Zay is here. How dare he? And Zay just seems like a phantom of his former self, which again, you know, grief over Order 66, I understand, but he also does not push back against this. Well, not even from here, your memory has to be wiped. The way that they're threatening to shoot him on sight and stuff. They also bring up the idea that Etain didn't want anyone to know about her baby because the Jedi Order would have taken her baby. And at least Zay says, no, we would have never done that. And then he's very upset about it. Meanwhile, poor Bardan Jusik, in quitting being a Jedi, has gone 180 degrees to being a Mandalorian, and now he's trying to reconcile his Force skills with his Mando identity, and Cal Skirata, he asks him if he can adopt him, and now he's his father. Oh, I just really wish a lot of these characters would go to therapy. You know what they need? They need extensive therapy. And honestly, you're not going to get it on Cal Skirata's farm on Mandalore. They also have Jango Fett's older sister Arla, who, if we're talking about people having trauma, I think Arla Fett has the most trauma. And we find out towards the end that she was captured by Death Watch. These are events that happened in the Open Seasons comic. And she got Stockholm Syndrome and she was working for Death Watch as an assassin. And then she's been in Republic custody for years and years and years on very heavy antipsychotics. And she doesn't want to live with what she's done. So now Jusik is also considering wiping her memory as well. Hoo boy. And on the bad guy front, it's complicated. Obviously, the Empire is bad, but they just seem like a threat, like off in the distance. We'll have to deal with them someday. And then all of a sudden, towards the end, we're introduced to the fact that Death Watch is back, that Dread Priest and his girlfriend, who were apparently also trainers of the clone troopers, but bad ones, who ran a fight club. We were told towards the beginning that they're on Mandalore, but then towards the end, Ordo and Gillimar run into them and find out about Death Watch, and Gillimar kills Priest and they throw his body in the river, and they're like, well, that might be an issue. And this is the kind of thing where I felt like that threat really should have been built up, at the very least, over the course of the book, but maybe even introducing them in previous books. I think they were mentioned in Order 66, but this was the first time we saw them. And it's hard to feel threatened about them, about the existence of Death Watch, when it's sprung on us basically at the very end. So I guess my first issue with Imperial Commando was just, holy crap, this book was slow. Perhaps Karen Traviss wanted to reflect that now that the Clone Wars have ended, that Cal Skirata's little gang are having some rest and relaxation, that they're trying to figure out their new life. But it's just, for me at least, so boring to read. They really only have 2 missions, extracting maize and then trying to extract Niner and Darman, and then I wouldn't even count Cal Skirata meeting with Altis as a mission. Same with Bardan Jusik going to talk to Altis the first time. Like, it happened so quickly. There's so many seeds of them just hanging out on the farm on Mandalore, and the troopers that Rav Braylor trained, they're learning about farming, and it's just dull. Especially after 4 previous books of a lot of action sequences. I can guess what Traviss was trying to do here, but honestly it just felt like she was running out of steam. Almost as though the more characters she introduced and the more interpersonal stuff that starts, the more soap opera-like it got. But soap operas can be wild and crazy, and this was not that. And my only note from my first read through, which said self-indulgent melodrama, it just felt like so many people wallowing in their emotions, which I can understand to a point, but stop it! I want something to happen, and nothing happens. When I was a kid, I played with Barbies. I loved Barbies. And one Thanksgiving, my cousins came to visit, and one of my cousins brought his G.I. Joes, and he stole my Barbies because G.I. Joe needed a girlfriend. And so much of this book felt like that. G.I. Joe needs a girlfriend. It's the way that it started in earlier books, you know, where a teen meets Lacima, and that's nice. And you've got Darman and Uthan, and then eventually Ordo and Bethany. But it reaches a point here where people are getting together basically off screen. We have Jitka and Kor. Why is Jitka getting with Kor other than he's an unattached clone trooper? Who knows? Towards the end, we're told that Rue, Cal Skirata's daughter, is involved with Cov, who's one of Rav Braylor's troopers. We never even saw that. We've got Dr. Uthan and Gillimar. Okay, it just felt like now that they've settled down on Mandalore, people need to get together. But it's also like, that only works if we see it. And so much of this felt like, yeah, shoving Barbies at G.I. Joes. We'll pair this off with this person and pair this off with this person. And then the way that Mandalorians is this strong warrior culture, and there are female Mandalorians like Rav Braylor. We meet Boba Fett's granddaughter in the Legacy of the Force books. But then we get to Imperial Commando, and I swear, other than Nyreen, most of the characters who are women in this book, we only see in the kitchen. Bethany, who is a very intelligent Republic auditor, basically every scene we see her in, she's in the kitchen. She's trying to cook. She's not good at cooking. She wants to be the perfect Mandalorian wife for Ordo. Where did these like 1950s gender dynamics come from? pairing everyone off started in previous books. I could see that. But now that they're on Mandalore and there's nothing to do, the women are all in the kitchen and the men are all sitting around discussing what they're gonna do. This is Mandalore. I expected better than that. And finally, I was most interested in Niner and Darman's plotline, which felt like we kept cutting away from that to boring Mandalore stuff. But then even when we were focused on Niner and Darman, like I said, there's only 3 missions. There's the one to catch the ranger where they kill Camus and get the information. There's the one where all of a sudden they're sent off after this Jedi in the depths of Coruscant, but he's not a Jedi, he's just a dude who stole a lightsaber. And then another mission where they're sent to this space station and they kill a Jedi. Reed kills the Jedi. And that's it. Melusar talks a lot about how he's going to send them to take down the Jedi. They've taken down a bunch of Jedi, but really the only one remaining is Master Altis's group. But so much of this felt like, well, we can't do anything important here because we're saving it for book 2, which is exceptionally frustrating when there is no book 2. Reading Imperial Commando, I just was getting so upset because it felt like so much squandered potential that I enjoyed Hard Contact so much. I have recommended Hard Contact to so many people, but by the time we got to Order 66, and especially to this one, it's like, my recommendation would be don't read those 2. Don't read those 2. What made the book so good is drowned under poorly done romance, everyone talking about their feelings, and rants about the Jedi. I was with you, Travis. I was with you about how the clones, it sucks to be a clone. You're not even treated like a person. You're a thing. But then she squanders it with everything that comes afterwards. I think a lot of people would find this an exceptionally frustrating reading experience. And I certainly did. When I sat down to reread this for the second time because I did not take good notes, I was basically getting through a chapter and then I'd have to take a break because I was getting mad. I can usually get through a Star Wars book in a week. This took me over a month. So, in short, 501st, an Imperial Commando novel by Karen Traviss, is the first part of an unfinished story. Because she quit writing for Star Wars, we never got book number 2. There were rumors about Del Rey commissioning someone else to write book number 2, but it never panned out. So nothing is resolved in this book. Almost everything is left hanging for a second book that never materialized. And while I was interested in what was going on with Niner and Darman on Coruscant, the scenes on Mandalore are an awful lot of sitting around, talking, and not doing anything. Some things are obviously set up for book number 2, but none of that is resolved here. And the only way you get any resolution is if you seek out fan fiction. So for me, that makes Imperial Commando a really hard sell, because why would I recommend a book that's basically unfinished? But at the very least, I'm glad I finally finished the Republic Commando series and can now move on to other things and bid farewell to the Scarada gang and say, you guys were filled with drama. So next time, I'm going to be reading the 3rd book in the Darth Bane trilogy by Drew Karpyshyn, Dynasty of Evil.